Growing up, I absolutely loved reading and I loved books. And my absolute favourite book ever was Amazing Grace, which was about this little black girl who loved stories and wanted to do everything, and she was exactly like me. But now looking back, I've kind of realised that actually that was literally the only book available to me that made me feel like I was represented. This was back in the 90s, but I read a statistic the other day that made me worry that nothing's changed. So I'm going to find out just how inclusive kids' books really are today. And if not, why not? And who's responsible?
To help me figure it out, I'm meeting industry game changers and even the author of Amazing Grace. But first, I'm going back to my primary school, the place where I learned to love to read. I'm meeting some of the kids there to see what they think. Who loves reading? Good answer. When I was growing up, I had this book called Amazing Grace. I don't know if any of you have read it.
I think I have.
This book was really important for me because the character was really similar to me. She liked stories. Her hair was similar to me as well. Raise your hand if you feel like you've seen a character in a book that looks like you or reminds you of you.
Yeah. Quite a lot, actually. Hermione in Harry Potter, she looks a bit like me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not really, but very rarely I do. Sometimes.
What about you?
Some of my family is from India and some of my family is from America. I don't really see anybody. There is loads of books that have just white people in. There should be more of like different coloured people and with different religions. My dad's side are Jewish, and I don't think I've ever seen a Jewish book character. They're usually Christians. I have a book at home that I really, really like because it's a book that I got for my birthday, and it's just got black people in it, and it's about all of the amazing things that they can do.
And how do you feel when you read that book?
Anything is possible. Well, if I read that kind of book as well, like with loads of different coloured people, stuff like that, I just feel everything's possible as well.
So do you guys think it's important that you have characters that you can see yourselves in when you're reading books?
Yeah. It just makes you feel like, it just makes you feel good.
Clearly, there's a massive appetite for these books, but I'm just not seeing enough of them on the shelves. There is this one book I've heard of that's both inclusive and popular. So I'm going to meet the author and the illustrator on a book bus in South London to find out more. Hi guys.
Hi. Tintin. Oh. Wow. We want to show you our book. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So, can you see it right at the back? Yeah, our book is about a little girl called Rocket, and she loves space. And she wants her older brother to look up from his mobile phone so that he can see a big meteor shower coming across the sky.
Jamal's really boring.
Yeah, Jamal is boring. Who wants to look down at their phone all the time?
Yeah, boring.
Phones are so boring.
What has the reaction been to the book?
And the reaction and the response has been just nothing short of uplifting. Everyone always says this, which is like, I know a Rocket. As in, they know a little girl, they were that little girl. It's just, yeah.
It's been glorious.
You know.
So a recent study showed that only 4% of book characters are BAME.
It's really interesting that if you go on Twitter and you see, you know, people are talking like 4%'s high. They're like, you guys, you did 4%, high five, well done. That's going to stop it there. Like, people are actually angry at that number. So we're also having to...
6% is still left.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Do you know what I
So
mean?
like, you know, it's not something to brag about. It's not
And
something
there's
to
more inanimate objects as main characters in books than BAME main characters.
Yeah.
So that's also quite a, you know, heart-wrenching.
problematic.
Yeah.
It's problematic that a rock has more of a chance of being a lead character
Or
in
a
a
sponge.
book than a black child.
Yeah.
The amount of homework that you have to do to get representation right, it's not a lot, you know. That's why I kind of fail to understand why it's so difficult to get more than 4%.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Also, like, us knowing that we can write picture books. This was, if I'm totally honest, I never thought ever in my life I was ever going to write a picture book. I never thought.
So I'm interested in the commissioning process. What was that like? Did you have a lot of offers? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
We had offers that numbered in the double digits to publish the book first time out. We didn't get rejected once by anybody. and it was ridiculous. You know, we've got talented black writer, talented black illustrator, great character. I'll be really stark and really honest about it. We ticked all the boxes. Publishing is a business, so it made business sense. Book Trust did another survey as well, and it showed that 1.9% of creatives creating the content were black and minority ethnic as well. And that's writers and illustrators. And in that 1.9%, I am one of 2 black British illustrators working in UK publishing. Wow. There might be more now, because this was about a year ago, but I am one of 2.
Okay,
so
you're one of 5.
you know, 4%. It's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
You know, so that needs to change. All of that needs to change for this diversity push to be genuine. Yeah. We need to have more people that represent the diversity that the publishing industry says it wants, creating the content and commissioning the content too.
And that's at grassroots and at head level. It's both. You need both.
Both areas.
Like, you need to talk
up.
to these kids in this school, everywhere. Just say, this could be your story. You know, I think.
The reaction to Look Up proves there's a demand for books like it. So what's the problem? I'm in Brixton to speak with the founders of Nights Of. They're an inclusive kids book publisher, and I meet them at their bookshop. They only stock diverse books, so that includes race, gender, sexuality, and everything else. They're the rare few that are doing what they're doing, so I want to find out why it isn't the norm. So what has the reaction been from people who live in the community and people who come to the bookshop?
I mean, the shop has been absolutely amazing, and we've only been open 6 months, and we get a lot of kids, a lot of parents, as you expect, but also like a lot of teachers and librarians passing through who are just overjoyed to see themselves on the shelves.
So what's the importance on the wider level in publishing?
I think when you open the doors, as it were, as to what publishing looks like, you see a very homogenous space. And unfortunately that is reflected in the books that come through. I feel as though the more we talk about the different opportunities within publishing, the more we'll reach different people, and the more the makeup of offices will change. And
it's also how important and how powerful it is to see authors and illustrators going to schools and showing any kid in the room that your ideas and your imagination is valid and the stories you want to tell are incredibly valid.
What are your hopes for the future?
This happened in the 70s and the early 80s, and again in the 90s. Each time you think, great, we've made it, and then it just... I mean, either it fizzles out or people
get burnt out. Yeah. There's been many people that have come before us who have been shouting about inclusivity and the need for diversity within kids' books, and I think what we're hoping now is that it's not just the singular few who are shouting and hoping that change will happen.
What we're trying to do is sell as many books as possible, point to it as, so it's not just one tiny bookshop in Brixton selling inclusive titles, but it's Waterstones, WH Smith, and all of the indies around the country. Yeah. So it's not unusual to see a book with a brown or black kid on the cover, or a kid in a wheelchair on the cover. Instead, it starts to become it's just another book.
Yeah.
I mean, talking ourselves out of a job, but...
I mean, yeah, we'd love to become defunct, I think.
I mean,
you know,
I'd love for our message just to be we make great stories and adventures,
yeah.
instead of we make great stories and adventures that include every kind of kid. I'd like that second half of the sentence to be irrelevant.
Yeah.
The popularity of Nights Of with all audiences just emphasises even more how confusing this all is. For decades there's been a demand for diverse books, so why is progress in this area so slow? I'm going back to the beginning of my journey to meet Mary Hoffman, who has been pioneering diversity for as long as I can remember. Maybe she can help me figure out what's going on.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, Grace.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Come on in.
Thank you.
This is my study where I do all the writing.
Amazing.
Sitting here on my green sofa. So shall I read something from it?
If you would.
Okay. Grace was a girl who loved stories. She didn't mind if they were read to her or told to her or made up in her own head. She didn't care if they were from books or on TV or in films or on the video or out of Nana's long memory. Grace just loved stories.
I feel like this is a very full circle moment because I've kind of read this book and I've had this book since childhood.
You've loved the cover right off.
I've loved it right off. This book had a really big impact on me, and I know it had a big impact on a lot of other people. What made you want to write this book?
So I wrote it in 1989, and at that time there were very few books that had black main characters in the UK. There was a couple of books by Petronella Breinberg, and those were really the only ones I knew about. You know, I just didn't think there were enough, really. And my principle has always been, if the book doesn't exist that you want, well, you better write it. So I wrote Amazing Grace.
When people read the book, I think a lot of people would assume that you are a black writer, and some people may be surprised when they find out that you're not.
I've had a lot of letters from black women, the mothers of daughters, who feel empowered by this book, who have assumed that I'm black. And I take that as a great compliment because it means I got something right. I really write towards my own redundancy because I hope that in years to come after my death, people will look at my books and say, what a funny old world she must have been living in, that you need to make the point that a black girl can be anything she wants, or that a grandmother can be fun, or, you know, any of the issues that I've tackled in my books. I hope they would just think, well, these are museum pieces. We don't live in that kind of world anymore.
So there's been a big push for representation in publishing, and there have been mixed reviews of its success. What are your thoughts?
That it's going very slowly, because I've been banging on about it for 30 years or more. I think the main problem is that it's the little publishers, the independent publishers and the independent bookshops that are leading the way on this. And I think the big publishing houses, I don't think they mean to not cover so many aspects of diversity. I think they're just not perhaps woke enough. You know, we've been trying to wake them up, but they're just not quite woke enough.
Progress is slow, and the publishing industry needs to do better, to commit to change, to make a serious push for diversity if it's going to stick this time. Only if that happens will future generations of children get to see not only themselves, but their friends, their families, their communities reflected in the books that they read.